Welcome to your crash course in figurative proportions. I gave you a task to draw in scale and in multiple angles a Greek kouros. Now that's a human form, and although it's very simplistic, I'm going to attempt to strip away as much anatomy as possible and just give you the essence of proportions, of human proportions. Again, I'm going to really try to simplify it. There are thousands of videos online of how to nitpick all the little dimensions and all the way to break it up. I'm going to give you major landmarks, so at very least you will at least get a figure in proportions, and maybe it'll give a good springboard for you to be able to work with a figure in motion. Okay, so just like the Venus of Willendorf, right, I'm going to use the same sort of construction lines, very similar to the way we started the Venus. Okay, I'm going to want to have the top and the bottom of my figure. Now, I'm not going to use a ruler. I'm just going to do this kind of by eyeball, just sketching, because I don't want you to get so obsessed with making everything perfect. So if this doesn't come out looking super realistic or anything, that's not my intention. My intention is just to give you some guidelines to work with. All right. So we know we're going to have the top and bottom of the head. Two things you should remember as far as dividing up the human figure: halves and thirds. If you don't know what I mean by halves and thirds, guess what? You actually do use your math classes. Right? So I'm going to break this figure into halves and thirds. Now, before I get to that, one of the most traditional ways to teach human proportions is to divide the figure up into 8 heads. So no matter how big your head, if you have a tiny little head or a big head, the rest of the proportions of your figure will be based upon that head. Right? That's nice and dandy, but I do like to work with the space I have. That is why I always start with the top and bottom. I want to know where the top of the head is and the feet are. This way, I don't start with a big head and run out of room and suddenly I'm cutting it off by the knees or something like that. Okay? So, once again, I'm going to divide my figure into halves and thirds. Top of the head, bottom of the feet. Right there in the middle, you see how it kind of separated in 2 halves? Yeah, close enough. That's where your crotch is. All right, right there in the center. And I'm going to half it again, and half it again. Okay. So yeah, you can tell these are about quarters. I'm a little bit off. Whatever. It's no big deal. Okay. Don't worry, I'm getting somewhere. Okay. Top of the head, I'm going to do nipples, crotch, knees, bottom of feet. Right, top of the head. The reason why I made such a big deal about this being nipples and crotch is because people like to make this the shoulder or make this the hips. I'm distinguishing between the two. Okay, so these are halves, halfway down, halfway down. Not a bad start, right? I am going to now do thirds. Okay, I'm going to do about a third here and about a third here. Okay, and just to know where this is going, this is about the bottom of the chin, and then this is about belly button and elbows. Your head, okay, since I kind of decided that this line is roughly where the chin is, let's take a look. Let's check her work. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. About 8 heads. What do you know? Okay, so there's your whole eight head thing. Now you need a little room for your neck, right? So you can even separate this in half, but right about where the nipples are, if you look right where your nipples are, it will kind of intersect where your shoulders are. Okay, so go ahead and here's your neck. Here's your chin. Give yourself nice broad shoulders. Okay, and then we're going to use a triangle. Going to go down to the crotch. Oh my gosh, it looks like one of those 1980s people. All right, don't worry, I'm getting to something. Okay. So now we know where our shoulders are. Okay, roughly. We know where the crotch is. Now let's use another inverted triangle, about the same. Okay. A little wide. Okay. But look at that. Now I know that there's a little area for the neck, a little area for the crotch. All right, doing okay, doing okay. To start doing the proportions of the leg, it gets pretty simple. The knees are about midway, the feet are of course on the bottom. Now, the hips don't start where your crotch is, they're above the crotch, okay? And so that's kind of when I use this triangle, okay? I could just bring down another triangle here, right? And a line from the crotch, right? A little wide-hipped there, but that's okay. I, worked out when I was doing karate. But those points of the triangle kind of becomes the hip bones, right? Hip bones. And then what do you know? The waist, right there, the elbows, the belly button, your waist, right? So I'm going to kind of extend that out. So when you start bringing in these arms, right? This is where the elbows are, that's a pivot point. And then you also bring the arms down here, and your wrists pretty much match up with your crotch. Okay? And then the little hands dangle out and come to about midway of the thighs. All right? Sticking with me? I told you this would go pretty quick. All right, so just to kind of fully flesh this out, let's do an outline. Here's the end. Here's your waist. Goes to your hips, down to your legs with the knee, right? Waist, hips, knees, feet. Just going to put like little triangles there. That by itself is basically the human proportions, okay? I'm going to go ahead and flesh this out, kind of bulk it out. This is the wrist. You can kind of make these cylinders if you want, little triangles, right? And then little space there. That's kind of it. All right, so just a quick review. If you take the top and the bottom and you cut it in half, it's about where your crotch is. All right, cut the bottom part in half, that's where your knees are. All right, cut the top part in half, it's basically where your nipples are. Then you start going to thirds. Cut this into thirds, bottom of the chin. Cut that into thirds. You got your belly button and your elbow pivot. Don't forget that your wrists are about where your crotch is, halfway, maybe a little lower, and then your end of your fingertips is about halfway down your thighs. Basic proportions, and using two triangles to create that waistline, shoulders, and hips.